Hello, kia ora, g'day. I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only weather forecast for the next week ahead as we say goodbye to October and hello to the start of November. Let's have a look at the Tuesday satellite imagery. Plenty of thunderstorms and downpours around Queensland and also into parts of New South Wales. There is low pressure centred basically over New South Wales, but it sort of stretches out into Queensland as well. So lower pressure basically building around the eastern half of Australia. But if you drop down to the southern part of Australia, you've got high pressure south of Adelaide, and that is also controlling some of the weather into New South Wales. It is dredging up this cold southerly. You can see it with the speckled cloud over the Tasman Sea, so a much colder airflow. There's been some snow flurries to low levels in New Zealand this morning, if that gives you some sort of indicator. And that airflow then curves around and comes across New South Wales as a windy nor'easter between the low in the north and the high in the south. So a bit windy, maybe over the Great Dividing Range, you'll feel that the most. Wet weather coming into the Northern Rivers area and also other showers around New South Wales. But most of those thunderstorms are in Queensland. There could be some severe ones today. A lot of that severe weather energy has moved out to sea and is north of Lord Howe Island, but might affect Norfolk Island as we go through the later part of today with those thunderstorms offshore. And you jump over to Western Australia, we do have a few showers, pretty warm weather as the airflow comes from the interior. And the Northern Territory, a lot of thunderstorms this morning, but as you can see, that energy is moving into Queensland as the sun rises. Here is the air pressure with temperatures. So you can see that low, smack bang over New South Wales, but the temperatures which show warmer weather in the reds and oranges and cooler weather in the greens, you can see that colder airflow off the Tasman and straight into New South Wales, even in to the southeast corner of Queensland, dropping temperatures down for you. Now, once you're out into the outback, that low is mixing warm and cool weather. That's why we're seeing thunderstorms and that instability. And then further southwards, the skies dry out, the winds get lighter as you're closer to that high. So the right-hand side of the high's got the cooler weather, left-hand side of it, that's where the heat is as we go through the next couple of days. Thunderstorms are still around. This is for later on today, 4 o'clock Tuesday, Queensland time. You can see still plenty of thunderstorms. Most of them are offshore, but some are coastal as well and might move from inland out to the coast depending on the setup where you are. Now, as you go into New South Wales, that thunderstorm risk starts to fall apart, but there's still the chance of some big thunderstorms as we go through this afternoon and into this evening. Elsewhere though, pretty quiet really, considering the time of the year we're in. Right, now getting into Wednesday, now you've got to get used to the eastern wet weather because this is something we haven't had for a while, but seeing wet weather all the way down the eastern coastline. The areas in the blue, bottom of the scale, so you're only talking about up to 5 millimeters and some of the darker blue shading. So when the blue is next to the green, it's not very much in the way of rain. So you're looking for the golds and the reds, and you can see sort of blobs, little blobs of that even up here into the top end. So you will get some heavy downpours. You will get some thunderstorms, maybe severe as well. And then that comes down into New South Wales, and the further south you go, the more it tapers off. So the ACT is mainly dry, and Victoria looks completely dry. So does Tasmania, with the polar boundary finally disappearing goodbye. And it disappears for a few days, which is great. Not having to use the highlighter to show you where it is. So as we go to Thursday, mostly settled weather around Tassie, but the eastern side of Australia again has showers, once more at the lower end of the scale. That means in some cases it builds up, it feels like you're going to get a downpour and it just doesn't really happen, or it happens further away from you where there might be a significant thunderstorm that produces very heavy rain. Elsewhere around Australia on Thursday, pretty quiet, other than the thunderstorms around Darwin and the top end, pretty quiet in many other parts of Australia. But the one other change, westerly winds arrive. So coastal parts, say from Perth southwards, just may notice the temperatures dropping a wee bit as we go through the week. And by Friday, southwesterly winds, that is the polar boundary. It's well offshore, but it's sort of getting closer to you, which will help drop the temperatures a wee bit. High pressure over the Great Australian Bight, so pretty calm for you. But there is a weak area of low pressure in the western part of Victoria. So I wouldn't 100% lock this in. This is a bit of a weak looking forecast, not an overly powerful high and not an overly powerful low. So a few things could still change. Seeing a few showers around as you are along the whole eastern side of Australia, but the intensity looks like it's really dropping. They, for the most part, aren't producing a huge amount of wet weather. Let's go into the weekend. The red tropical boundary comes right down to the coastline of South Australia, so you'll feel the heat certainly around that. And as you go through the day, while the red line doesn't come over Adelaide, the northerly wind will start to develop. So the heat will lift up this weekend around South Australia and eventually moving further to the east. But to begin with, many coastal areas still have a breeze sort of off the sea, but it's more of a northerly kicking in now in many places. So you will feel the temperatures going up in New South Wales. Thunderstorms in the southeast corner of Queensland, you might get some severe ones in there, and the tropical boundary pushing into northern parts of New South Wales on Saturday. The showers in Victoria don't look to be very much. Similar story in the ACT and Tasmania as well. And the cooler change carries on, the polar boundary fairly close to the southern coastline of Western Australia, and the usual thunderstorms here in the Northern Territory and the Kimberley. And they expand a wee bit further on Sunday, those thunderstorms in the top part. And also north of the Sunshine Coast, you might get some severe thunderstorms. This far out, it could move around a wee bit, but there could be a bit of energy here in the southeast worth monitoring as the red tropical line continues to sort of hover around the northern part of New South Wales. And if you're not under the red line, you've still got warm northerly winds or even northwesterly winds for Victoria, the ACT, southern parts of New South Wales, and of course Tasmania. Sorry, the sign's over you, Hobart. There's nothing to show, just a northerly breeze for you. So there are a few things going on, but it's South Australia that's maybe the most interesting on Sunday, because you've got the tropical boundary just to the north, the polar boundary just to the south. Usually in between the two, you get some thunderstorms and some wet weather. Based on the modelling at this stage, it doesn't look too significant, but that could still change being this far out. And then we go through to the start of next week, and we are seeing signs of the weather sort of easing back a bit from the peak of spring. October's usually the peak of spring, but we're still seeing here going into November. Monday is the 3rd of November, the polar boundary returning back up over the top of Port Lincoln, over the top of Adelaide, Kangaroo Island, and right down here and coming into Victoria, Mount Gambier, those areas all feeling a wintry snap coming back in. Once more, this far out, things could still change a wee bit, but you are seeing this is high pressure south of Western Australia, and it's a long way south, which means it's dredging up that colder airflow over the Southern Ocean. So that's why your temperatures drop. But the positive side of that, some low pressure around New South Wales and Victoria might spark further rain and thunderstorms, while Queensland has thunderstorms around, as does the Northern Territory. Western Australia looks pretty dry and a little bit windy and certainly warm as we go to the start of next week. So there are still quite a lot of things going on around Australia. The cyclone season starts this weekend as well. At this stage, we're not seeing a lot of life up here, but we'll be looking at that a lot more closely once we go into next month. That is all from me for today. Have a great week ahead. I'll see you again tomorrow, Wednesday, with our next Australia Only update.